Welcome back, guys. So, excuse me. I kind of got inspired to do this video that I'm doing right now after listening to a podcast episode by Peter Quinones. If you don't know who he is, go search his podcast, Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast. And he had someone on, and they were talking about gardening and talking about, you know, how much work it takes and stuff like that. And I'm not particularly critiquing what the guy was saying because, you know, it is a lot of work. You know, gardening is a lot of work. You have to put the work in. You can't just, there are things out there that are like, you know, gardening methods that you don't have to pull weeds and you don't have to do this and that, and I just don't buy that. I've never experienced that myself, but excuse me, I have to put my sunglasses on. I was thinking, you know, when I heard this, what, you know, if you're having to do just absolutely backbreaking stuff, you know, backbreaking work to maintain your garden, to get yields, to do all this other stuff, in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. And there are, I think, there could be several reasons behind that. Now, when I set up my annual garden bed this year was brand new. So yeah, I had to get out there. I got out, you know, in the morning, pretty much every morning for, I don't know, at least a month. And I had to, you know, dig and not dig, but till and get everything ready. You know, I had to do all that because it was brand new, and it won't be as much work now because it's, you know, I'm just maintaining it. I'm keeping it maintained. I won't have to do what I did. I hope to, like, my goal is not to ever have to use a true tiller on it anymore. I just did it the first time. If I have to do anything else, you know, my goal is to just do it with a hoe or with you know, like the broad fork, that sort of thing. But hopefully it's something that I just need to keep maintained, don't have to actually till it up. That's my goal, because I don't want to till it all the time. So yeah, when I first did it, you know, and I was working on limited time, so if someone had more time, it would have taken them less time to get it established. But, you know, I had to do some serious work for at least a month, pretty much every day. And but since then it hasn't been, it's work. I mean, you've seen in some of my videos, I have to go out and I have to hoe it. I need to hoe it right now because there's some, I've let the weeds kind of get grown up a little bit. Not grown up, but I've let them get, there's more weeds than I want. And, you know, some of that is because, you know, it's been cold and I can't stand going out in the cold. But it's just, let me just kind of get to where I'm trying to go here. And what I'm actually going to title the video is, you need to know your area. I think that is a huge issue, and I don't think that people take that seriously enough. You know, people need to know their area. So what do I mean by know your area? And I've touched on this some, but I'm kind of going a little more in depth because of, like I said, that video or that podcast I listened to. I live in Florida. I have a certain type of soil, I have a certain type of climate, I have a certain type of amount of sunlight, rainfall, slope to my land, that sort of stuff. And it's going to be different pretty much anywhere you go. I can't garden. It's different even in Florida. Florida is more or less divided up into 3 sections. Not literally, but when you're looking at growing and stuff like that, you can divide it up into 3 sections. You've got south, central, and north. And the things central you can kind of get away with some things that you couldn't get away with in South Florida or North Florida, but you're not going to be it's not going to be as easy to grow things in Central Florida, South Florida, as it is in North Florida. Plants that enjoy colder weather or need colder weather, need a longer period of colder weather. You're gonna, if you try to plant those in South Florida, it's gonna struggle because South Florida just doesn't get that. If you need something, or if you try to plant something that doesn't want any cold at all, it just can't take it, then you're gonna struggle planting that in North Florida, but you can get away with it in South Florida. So I think a lot of times people think about, soil. What kind of soil do I have? Do I have good soil or bad soil? And I feel like, pretty much everywhere, the idea behind gardening now is raised beds. And I've already talked about gardening methods, and I've already shared my opinions on raised beds, so I'm not going to give it again. But there's more to it than soil. You have to think about, like, for example, in Florida, where I am, my soil is pretty much sand. It's not as sandy as some areas, and I'm not right on the coast, so it's not just pure sand, but it's very sandy, which means that it will drain fast. It will eat through nutrients quicker than if you had clay or actual loam soil, which is the ideal soil. So I have to think about that. So yeah, soil is a big part of it. I have to think about what kind of plants don't care about the sand. What kind of plants can I grow that, some plants like it to be fast draining. Some plants, would rather it retain water. And the sun is making me look really white. There we go. But it's not just about soil. You got to think about, okay, in Florida, we get a lot of rainfall in the summertime, in late spring through the summer into early fall. We get a lot of rainfall. In the same time period, it is very hot and very humid in Florida. I have to take that into account. I have to take into account where I put plants and what plants I put in, like my annual bed and that sort of stuff, because some plants like to have the sun just beating down on them. But you also have to remember that the sun here is very strong and is very hot because we live. Florida is subtropical, and so there are plants that just don't like the sun beating down on them 24/7. I've watched it happen, and you have to take that into account. You have to take into account what's your humidity level like. You have to take into account altitude, all that sort of stuff. So all that to say, like I said, you need to know your area. And a lot of people, I feel like, want to grow grocery store vegetables, is what I call them. A lot of people want to grow, your beefsteak tomatoes. They want to grow the big fat cucumbers. They want to grow summer squash. They want to grow zucchini. They want to grow carrots. They want to grow corn. They want to grow the stuff that you can go to the grocery store and buy, and bell peppers, stuff that's just really popular. And that just doesn't work. You might be able to find varieties that work in your area. For example, it's very hard for me to grow beefsteak or slicer tomatoes. They just don't like it here, and I've tried multiple times, multiple methods, and but I can grow things like pear tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes. There's a native wild tomato in Florida, the Everglades tomato, that's basically a grape tomato, and they do really well. I've got several. I've got two pear tomato plants, and they're both producing. And this really isn't tomato time, so you can find varieties that might do well in your area. For example, another example would be Seminole pumpkins. I've tried growing jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, which are the big ones that you would buy at a pumpkin patch to carve a jack-o'-lantern. And I could never get anything I never got a yield. But the Seminole pumpkins here, I almost have to do nothing, and they grow on their own. And, this is my second time doing Seminole pumpkin. I did some in the spring, and then I'm doing some now. And again, it's not really time for Seminole pumpkin, but I've got, I think, like I said, that my wife counted 16 pumpkins, on the vines ripening right now. So, you can find a lot of times a strange variety that might grow in your area that you can. One more example: I can't grow very well your average cucumber that you would buy at the grocery store, but I can grow, and I did successfully grow. They're called cucamelons, or Mexican sour gherkins, and they're itty bitty, and they don't quite taste like slicing cucumber, but I can grow those here. Okra is another thing. I can grow okra with barely doing anything to it. I can basically grow it in my sleep here because it likes it. It likes the soil. It likes the climate. It likes, it works here. Black-eyed peas grow here well. The yard-long beans, or snake beans, or asparagus beans, whatever you want to call them, they do well here. They like the climate. Stuff like cassava, ginger. I could go on and on and on. Sweet potatoes, they will grow well here. And I'm not even getting into fruit trees and nut trees and what works with those and what doesn't work with those. But all that stuff will grow well here. What I cannot grow, like I said, your beefsteak or slicer tomatoes, your average grocery store cucumber. I have a hard time growing carrots here. I have a hard time growing, I'm trying to think what else is, bell peppers. They just don't like the heat. And we have a lot of bugs in Florida, so that's another thing you got to deal with. That's another thing you've got to know your area. I have a hard time growing, your standard melon, that sort of thing. But when you know your area, then you know what you can plant and what will work and not require back-breaking work. And this goes for planting directly in the ground and planting in raised beds, because I've done it both ways and I've had the same issues both ways. You know, it okay, so you're planting in a raised bed and you brought in bagged soil and some compost and stuff like that. The soil may be good, but you still have to deal with the rainfall, the heat, the amount of sun, the humidity, all sorts of things, the pests, all kinds of things. It's not just the soil when you're talking about knowing your area. And then with soil, like I've talked about before, it's not just the kind of soil you have, it's what's in it. You know, do you have organic matter in your soil? Do you have nutrients in your soil? What do you need to add? You know, there's a lot to think about, and you can't. Anyways, I'm getting carried away. Basically, it's just I heard this person talking about how it almost seemed like, you know, gardening was such back-breaking work, and it is work. I'm telling you, there's no way you can garden and not do any work of some kind. Whether it be planning, actually building garden spaces, you know, working garden spaces, picking and cutting down and replanting and you know, weeding, and you know, if there's a pest invasion, you got to deal with that. You know, you got to deal with your soil condition if you're going straight into the soil, all kinds of stuff. So there's no way you can garden and not do work. But if you know your area, then it doesn't require backbreaking work, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong, and you know, there could be plenty of gardeners out there that would say that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's okay. But when you get to know your area and you get to know what will work in your area, and another good way of doing this is looking where you are, kind of going along the latitude across the world, and seeing, you know, okay, I live, let's say, in Pennsylvania. Let's go, you know, directly across the latitude over into Europe or wherever, and what are they growing over there? Because we're going to have similar climates, not exactly the same, but similar as far as like temperature and stuff like that. It's going to be similar. What are they growing? And you know, go the other way, like look in, you know, places like Asia and stuff like that. What grows there? You know, so there's all that you've got to take into account, and that's work in and of itself. But once you know that and you cater to that, you're no longer fighting nature. You know, you're working with nature. You're letting things grow that would naturally grow in your area, either natively or if you introduced them. You know, it just makes life a whole lot easier. So my point, again, know your area, do your research about it before you start just planting. Now, I'm not discouraging experimentation. Always experiment and see what you can do, but know your area, know what grows well in your area or areas like your area, and then cater to that, and it will make your gardening life a whole lot easier. It won't be extreme backbreaking, you know, you constantly have to work or spray it or this, that, or the other to get it to yield or to even grow. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents. Like I said, when I was hearing them talk about that, it just made me, it kind of sparked my mind a little bit, and I felt like, okay, I should probably do a video and put it out, you know, so that it's kind of not that I'm arguing with the guy, but I'm kind of giving a different perspective, another perspective on it. Anyways, that's about it for now. I will I'll put a link in the comments to Peter's video, or not his podcast episode, where you can if you choose to listen to what I'm talking about. And thank you for watching. Please comment, please like, share, subscribe, and I will be back soon with another video.